A devastating attack on our soil stunned our nation. The American people found ways to regroup, to come together, to seek each other out.
From the smallest community to the largest city, Americans gathered in stadiums across the country as football galvanized us, reassured us that we stood together as a nation.
Football is America. It brings together Americans from all walks of life, political beliefs, races, and professions.
For a few hours, Americans are one. It's a phenomenon that happens in every community at any given football game.
I know football helped heal our nation and brought us joy during trying times.
Football is America.
Football exemplifies the flame of tenacity that burns inside of all of us.
Football reminds us of the character, the leadership, the perseverance, and ideals that we value. Ideals that we all value.
Football is America.
As we face the anniversary of 9/11, football reminds us of the sacrifices made by our firefighters, police, and military who protect and serve each of us.
Football is America.
Football inspires the very things we would like to see in ourselves.
As we experience life and pursue happiness and success.
Football is America.
When we get knocked down, we get back up.
We strive to do better today than we did yesterday.
Football is America. As a player, when I remember 9/11, I see the faces of Americans who needed something to hold on to, something that was familiar, that inspired the excellence of our nation.
For me, and I know for many others, we found it in the values of football.
Football is America.
9/11 impacted every American. It did not discriminate.
Today in stadiums across the country, we see 80,000 fans standing and saluting our flag.
Honoring our first responders, respecting our frontline public servants.
Football is America.
Football proves that diverse people can use their individual talents towards a common goal.
It is a model of diversity and inclusion, working together for a greater cause.
Football is America. It makes America great. It harnesses the best in us.
Respect, resilience, trust, loyalty, and courage.
Football inspires us to believe.
It provides hope for a better tomorrow. Football is America.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our 16th annual Veterans Day honoring our nation's heroes. You saw many of football's values, the same values as those who are defenders of freedom. And today, we are here to salute all those who serve and have supported us in defense of the life we are blessed to have. So from the Pro Football Hall of Fame, I welcome you. My name is George Veras, and I was blessed to have my dad serve this country honorably, but my dad is your dad. My dad is your granddad. My dad is your son. My dad is your daughter. My dad is the wife's support, the family support. And he had a terrific career serving in World War II in the Pacific and in Europe as well. He came to this country as a 14-year-old Greek immigrant, and he volunteered for the Army when he was 18 years old. So, Dad, good to see you today. I know you're looking down on us like so many of the others that we have loved here, and it's really my honor and pleasure to host this great event. Now, we have a great program for you today, and it begins really with the recognition of the true heroes. Just as you saw those players talk about, by the way, Van Miller is going to be playing for the Rams from now on, so you have to change your fantasy football league, having left the Broncos. Just an update. We always like to get a little football note into any discussion. But for us here at the Hall of Fame and the Hall of Famers who represent this great brand, these are the true heroes. So hold your applause as we honor and introduce our Medal of Honor recipients. It's an all-star lineup. First, Doc Ballard. Doc, would you face the audience, please? Hold your applause. Melvin Morris, Leroy Petrie, and Clinton Romashaw. Please give them a warm Hall of Fame welcome. Wait a minute, Doc. Don't go. Don't stand up, gentlemen. Stand up. What do you think I'm going to? Everybody else sit, please. Who's going to the Super Bowl? What are we getting here?
Chiefs.
Chiefs. Okay, Chiefs. Melvin?
Raiders.
Raiders. Okay. I know, look, Leroy, if anybody's ever watched a Cowboy game and seen him in the box with Jerry Jones on every other shot, my guess is...
Go Cowboys.
When?
Got to go with the Seahawks again.
See, no Browns? This is Ohio, Brent. No Bengals? Have a seat. We'll let you stay anyway. All right, okay. They are here today because of an incredible individual who has taken this upon himself in service to his country. Not enough is said about Timothy Novelli, Dr. Timothy Novelli, who began the Patriot Project. And this project, he has cobbled together a nationwide group of chiropractors to give free care to our veterans, the post-traumatic syndromes, the kinks that have to be worked out. Thank you, Dr. Novelli. We can't thank you enough. Please stand and give him a great round of applause. And tonight, wait, I'm not done with you either. Up, 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 up. Turn around, my friend. Really. Unbelievable. Thank you. All right, you get a chance to say Cleveland Browns. Are we going for that or not?
Cleveland Browns.
There you go. Okay. Now we're off and running. Also with us today, any members of Blue Star Mothers. Stand up, please. Give them a round of applause. Thank you for your service as well. So the NFL has had these many players. Al Blozis, Pat Tillman, Buffalo Bills owner Ralph Wilson, Hall of Famer Kevin Green, and our 2019 honoree who is here in this chair, Rocky Bleier. But a name that is not familiar to most, the first African-American enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame from the United States Coast Guard, would like to shine the light on the incredible military career of Emlen Tunnell.
With a strong desire to serve his country in World War II, Emlen would enlist in the United States Coast Guard in the spring of 1943. Stationed aboard the USS Edmund in the South Pacific, the stories of Tunnell's bravery and heroics have come to light over time.
He was on a destroyer that got torpedoed by the Japanese. He dove down 10 stories into the water and he saved the fella.
10 years ago, I stumbled upon Emlen Tunnell and his story, and really we didn't know about what his contributions were in the Coast Guard. So they went back and they looked at his record, and in his record, they actually found a citation basically for a Silver Life-Saving Medal for a different incident in 1946, and found out that he had saved a shipmate's life on board the USS Edmund, and he put him out with his own hands. He obviously burned himself. So a Silver Life-Saving Medal is one of the highest awards that can be given to a Coast Guard person for putting themselves in peril in order to save someone else's life. And that's exactly what he did. You know, he is an amazing piece of our history. Saving 2 lives, guardian ethos, honor, respect, devotion to duty. He hits all the marks.
And sure enough, in 1948, Emlen Tunnell became the first African American to suit up for Big Blue. Bursting onto the scene as the Giants' new punt return specialist and defensive back.
We're talking about the first defensive player to ever be inducted into the NFL Hall of Fame. We're talking about the Coast Guard naming a cutter ship after him. So we're very proud of Emlen Tunnell, very proud he's from Delaware County, and we think that this is going to be nothing but a celebration of his life, and it'd be hard-pressed to find somebody that's more deserving than Emlen Tunnell.
Emlen Tunnell still ranks second all-time in the NFL with 79 interceptions. He made the Pro Bowl 9 times in his career and won 2 NFL championships. In 2010, Big Blue would pay tribute by inducting him into the inaugural class of the Giants Ring of Honor.
He was a great football player, a great man, and a great American.
And just last month, this Coast Guard cutter in his name was launched at the Philadelphia Naval Yards. You know, shining the light, bringing these stories back is part of our mission here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And if you think about our mission, it applies exactly to military and other great institutions in this country, to honor the heroes of the game or the institution, to preserve its history, which we do with an event like this, to promote its values and celebrate all together. And that's what we're here today as we huddle up and wanted to share this story of the great Emlen Tunnell. So every year we find stories like this, and every year we're looking to reach out to others who can tell us about their military lives and inspire us with their excellence. We've been trying to secure our main speaker for years, and we're really pleased to introduce him and get you up to date on General Robert L. Van Antwerp and his life and his story.
Former Chief of Engineers and Commanding General of the United States Army Corps of Engineers, Robert Van Antwerp Jr. is a highly respected, low-key leader who emphasized collaborative leadership from the football fields at West Point to a 39-year career managing 37,000 engineers and a $40 billion budget by facing and embracing adversity.
I would say the first thing, embrace adversity, and that's a very hard thing. Leaders have to be able to take that on. I have to be able to say, Jessica, let's sit down and talk about how that went. I'm not firing you, I'm not down on you, I want you to learn. If we understand that leaders have a role in developing people, you wouldn't let some of the things go by that we let go by.
Nothing went by him from West Point class of 1972 and 2 master's degrees from Long Island University and the University of Michigan. He was appointed as Commanding General in 2007 with 2 major tasks: the $12 billion Hurricane Katrina rebuild and the infrastructure build-out in Afghanistan.
New Orleans is what I'm calling the strategic corporate. Because as New Orleans goes to a great extent, the Corps of Engineers goes. One thing we have to do is deliver down there. We've got people that are counting on us. That will be a place where the Corps will restore some of the trust that was lost there. And basically what I'm saying is that we're going to tell them what we're going to do, and we're going to do what we say.
Colonel Magnus here. We're at the National Maintenance Facility, really downtown Kabul. About a $14 million project plugged into about the postage stamp size project.
You know, going to the commando facility and now at this maintenance facility, to me, it's like a dream that's coming alive. And you see the amount of placement every day. And as we've talked, this isn't just about writing a contract. This is where it's happening, where you actually see this water tank and you see the maintenance facilities. The other part that I've been so impressed with today is the building capacity part. As we went to Kabul University, we see what the dream might be for building engineers.
Today, he and his wife manage an army of 21 grandchildren as he travels around the country, continuing to mentor future generations.
If you want to grow somebody and you're in a leadership position, don't do your job alone. Meaning, I need to take somebody with, it's the essence of mentorship.
We are honored to welcome the Hall's 2021 Veterans Day honoree, Robert Van Antwerp Jr.
Okay, the tape said 21 grandchildren, but we recorded that tape 2 weeks ago. Tell us what happened.
We had another granddaughter about a week and a half ago, and she's awesome, Lilius Joan Tobias, to my daughter and her husband.
Well, you made the trek up yesterday from Carolina and brought your family. I'd like a moment to introduce them. So his wife, Paula, who they met as high school sweethearts, she was a cheerleader, and he was the quarterback playing for St. Joe's High School in Michigan. Paul Van Antwerp. And they gave the opportunity, or he grabbed it, you'll have to tell us, Hayne, yourself, of one of their 22 to accompany them to the Hall of Fame, because he is a football player, and you'll know who he looks like in a minute when he turns around. Hayne, please introduce yourself. Anybody get the resemblance to Trevor Lawrence? He's a huge Clemson fan. Leverage that, by the way. It's good when you want to get a reservation at the restaurant as you grow bigger. It'll work. So let's start with the easy stuff, which is football. You know, you play the game. You went to the academy and played the game. What were the values you took away from the game that later impacted you in your leadership?
Yeah, thanks, George. The first thing I want to do, I want to recognize the heroes we have here. And you four, but many others down here are wounded warriors, of which I know a couple of you guys here that we stand in your shadows and what you have accomplished. And this is about freedom. And you all know what it is to fight and give your all for freedom. Thank you. But, you know, my football career was high school, and then I actually was recruited to play football at West Point. Although I was a quarterback in high school, they moved me to defensive end. I played virtually one season on the JVs. I think we were playing Syracuse. They did a sweep with the fullback, was blocking for the halfback, and he hit me underneath the ribs, and I broke a couple ribs and punctured a lung. That was the end of my football career. But the values in that I had from my high school coach, who is a guy named Willie Kuntz, who just taught me so much, taught me about giving good, effective feedback that makes you better. Thus the comment in there that adversity. I think leadership is forged. Leaders are forged, and they're forged in adversity. But one of those things is that they know how to take effective criticism, if you will, as long as you know it's for your best. And that's what Willie Kuntz did for me. I know everything he taught me, whether it was positioning or whatever, was for my best. I'll just end this little part of football. Almost every team, I think, has something that they do when they walk out the door and go onto that field. Well, West Point has it too. It's a plaque. It was the quote goes to George C. Marshall, and on the plaque it says, "I have a dangerous and secret mission. I need a West Point football player." And so that's what we hit as we went out on those fields. And it's something I do feel too, all of those that have served in the Army here know that we have an acronym for our values, and it's leadership. It's a little abbreviated, LDR, and then SHIP. It talks about loyalty and duty and respect. And then the SHIP part of that is selfless service. It's honor, it's integrity, and it's personal courage. And I'd like to just say one thing about, I think it is about honor. It's about honor for all of you in here. It's for our Blue Star mothers who honor and who serve. And I think the other one for me is selfless service. I think with that selfless service goes I've studied a lot where people of faith, I love the idea about humility. I think leaders ought to be humble. Here's a definition for you. It comes, I think, out of the Purpose-Driven Life, and it goes like this. It's not thinking less of yourself, because people have incredible talents and gifts, but it is thinking about yourself less. And if you say that fast, you get what all of these folks have been an example of, and that is selfless service. So those values, we walked around the Hall of Fame yesterday, they're the same here, about that selfless service and discipline and all those things. So long answer, short question, but
no, not at all. No, continue. And speaking of the visit, there you are yesterday. What were the things you found or you enjoyed in the hall that sort of reflected the same values that we give to football to the military?
Yeah, I think one of the things, we're at the board I see over there, we were looking at which teams won the most Super Bowls, all right? So some of this is about winning, and I think we in the military, we're a winning team. We need to stay a winning team, and that means investment in that team, and it certainly means the discipline, the coaching, and all the things that go with it. Then one of the things I love, we went into the locker room, if you haven't been in there, and get to see that video. Joe Namath is up there. He comes in, he goes out, he comes in, and they've got a number of the players that are on the chalkboard, but come on and speak to us. They spoke about values. They spoke about inclusion. They talked about hard work and discipline and excellence in all you do. I think those are military values, and those are football values too.
And you had a chance in that photo there on the right to meet with our new president, Jim Porter. You'll be seated with him tonight at the Patriot Ball. Tell us a little about that visit.
It was a great visit. We knew David Baker, who was before Jim. And I just wrote David Baker this morning. He said, I'm at your old place here, and he's out in California, sends his regards and wishes you well, talked about you, doctor, and all of that, and just saying that this was a real honor and privilege for him to do this. But now he's got 10 grandkids he's going to take care of. In talking to Jim, I just see the vision, expanded vision for what the Hall of Fame does. I think we talked this morning too about the Hall of Fame is a bridge. It's a bridge between people that maybe are involved in a lot of other things, but it is one place we can come in and we can celebrate people of incredible talent, but that add knowledge and skills to that talent, so that there's a lot of talented people on the streets of America that are out of work and stuff. But when you see what these folks that wear that yellow jacket have, man, that's putting a kind of a natural talent with all the other things. And you know they grew and improved their whole career as they went through. And what a great example to all of us.
Great analysis. Why did you decide to serve? What drove you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I got recruited to play football. I already told you that, so that was it. West Point's a great free education, by the way. If you're younger in the crowd, we're working on Hayne here a little bit right here. It would help his parents out a lot, but it's a great education. But I was recruited to play football, but quickly I came from a very disciplined home, not undue discipline in that, but we learned about hard work and we learned about teamwork because I had 3 other siblings. And then we just, from that upbringing, when I got to West Point, I found it was like the perfect match for me. There's a lot of people, they want to go home after the first week or first month because you kind of get that shock effect when you come in because it's so different maybe than the culture you grew up in, but not for me. And so very soon it became really what is the West Point, the 3 words that are ingrained in you is duty and honor and country. And those became the centerpiece for me. And along the way, very quickly, you learn that freedom isn't free. Just ask these folks that are on the front line here. Freedom is not free, but it's worth the cost when you go. And I just pray for our country that we will be free always.
Your family history in the military. Tell us about that, starting with and now to your sons.
Yeah. I think it's a great history. You know, the World War II generation that my father served in, they didn't talk much. We had to go in one of his closets one day and find out that he was a infantry NCO and he was on Iwo Jima. And as we tracked, much like our football player here, that we now have learned their history. But that generation, which they call the greatest generation, books were written about them, was a quiet generation. But my father came back and he went to work for a company called Voice of Music, building record changers that most of you probably don't know what a record changer is. But then, like many of the people from World War II, he decided that he had a great idea. It was an entrepreneur, and he left that company and developed the belt drive turntables. My dad is an inventor too. We ate Hamburger Helper for 2 years. He first bought just an old warehouse where he started the first line, and I was the I will call you the landscaper. I mowed the grass, and this is one of the things he taught me: don't ever stop and think that there's not maybe a better way to do it. So I first had a push mower, but then I went down to a person who did lawnmower repairs, and he had a riding lawnmower, and I said, what would it take for you to put me in the seat of that riding lawnmower? And so, but I was the landscaper, if you will, for my dad's business. He built that business into a wonderful business and then sold it to British Industries Incorporated. So I came up with a soldier, and my mother was also, she was a mathematician and worked on the fuse for the atomic bomb, if you can imagine, during World War II, because everybody worked. Rosie the Riveter, you've seen those. Everybody played a part in it. And I would hope America would get to that point, not that we have another world war, but that everybody will pitch in and do their part. But from my dad, I just, so many lessons, certainly one of my heroes.
And what about your sons?
We've got a great family. As you can see, if you're going to have 22 grandkids, you got to have a bunch of kids. So we have 5 kids, and I won't say they're kids; they're all adults. Our youngest is 36 years old, and he's adopted. We did foster care along the way, so that was a very important piece of our lives. Just saying, how much love do you have to give? A lot more than you think. And when God is in it, you can give 100% love to a whole ton of people. But our oldest son and the 2 boys are the oldest, and we have 2 beautiful daughters, and then our adopted son. But our 2 older boys are in the military yet today. They're both West Point graduates also, and they're class of 98 and 99. My oldest, they both were in Delta Force along the way, and my oldest son commanded the unit and is now a Brigadier General Officer Select, who is in the 25th Infantry Division out in Hawaii, dream place, if you will. And he is just doing great and wonderful things. We just visited them for 2 weeks and have made the decision we're going to take our whole clan to Hawaii for Christmas. We're really going to test and see, can he really be a general out there? So he's got it all covered. But my other son is the commander of the 10th Special Forces Group. He and his wife are out there at Fort Carson, Colorado. They have 2 beautiful young boys, and we're looking forward to seeing them again in Hawaii. So that's my daughter, who is my assistant, who kind of worked all this out with your team, George, is married to Haynes' father, who is Brian Tobias, and he's a major, and he's a cyber warrior, and he's in Joint Special Operations Command, Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
Well, thank them for their service too. Congratulations. Yeah. That's really wonderful to continue the legacy. So tell us about your chain of command before you got to sort of the top, and we'll get to Katrina and Afghanistan.
Yeah, I had some real incredible mentors along the way. Maybe I'll just talk about one of them. Sure. I'm a Desert Storm guy. I commanded the 326 Engineer Battalion, 101st Airborne Division. And once you go to war with a unit, you wear that patch forever on your right sleeve. And I'll forever be a screaming eagle, air assault for any of you in here. But one of the really incredible things along that time was a guy named Stormin Norman Schwarzkopf. He was the commander of CENTCOM at the time. This is 90-91. He really led an incredible conglomeration, I'll put it, a lot of U.S. divisions, and then a lot of international units from all over. In fact, the 101st on our left flank was the French Foreign Legion. And they were an amazing thing, where we were doing night discipline. All of you know what that is. I mean, when we would go out at night, it'd be blackout drive. When you go over where the French Foreign Legion is, they got candelabra set up. Their camp is lit up. And I mean, we kind of crept into camp. I was meeting with their engineer, and they said, I said, how can you, aren't you guys a little bit worried? I mean, I know the Scuds aren't very accurate, but they could see you guys have lit up the desert. And he gives, they had kind of hand signals. They said, what does that mean? You tell them to come get us. We're going to go do it. That was their philosophy. But a little bit about General Schwarzkopf. Later on, I got to be with him a couple of other times. He's not quite as big as David Baker, but he's a big guy. He went out that door, he darkened the door. And one thing he did when we got ready, prior to going on the 100-hour war, he came to every U.S. division and every coalition force of any size, and he personally briefed the plan to free Kuwait. That left an impression. He didn't go to his operations guy or his G3 or have each staff brief their part. He briefed the whole thing to our division. We had a big meeting down, it was in a big tent, but it was about this size as this room. And so as a battalion commander, I was kind of in the middle row back there, and boy, I was listening and taking notes to everything he had. And after he did that, he said, "Are there any questions?" We asked him questions for about 45 minutes. And if he wasn't quite sure of what it was, and it was rare, he would get his aviation commander or whatever come up and say, "No, this is what we're thinking here." So when we left that room, we really feel we knew what his plan was. And then he said these words, he said, I'll be back in 2 weeks to hear how your plan fits into mine. That statement stuck with me a lot. Stuck with me when I went on to lead the Corps of Engineers, we put together a campaign plan, and every division and district in the Corps had a piece of that plan. He came back in 2 weeks. Our division commander, General P, who normally wouldn't have briefed our whole plan. Guess what? When you model something that's really good, and that stuck. It stuck with all of us. I've briefed all of our plans ever since in my life. I'm going to brief our plan. That means I have to really know our plan. And so that was a great thing. But General P, after he got done briefing our plan, I remember General Schwarzkopf, they asked questions. His staff asked some questions. We answered all their questions. He got ready to go. You can look at this door over here and think how a guy about 6'7", a shade over 300 pounds, was definitely breaking the Army weight standard program for that. But he got in the door and he kind of leaned against the door, and he was big, he was casual, but he just commanded respect. He said, if I don't talk to you again before we free Kuwait, I'll see you on the high ground in Kuwait. And I'm thinking to myself, so he's not going to talk to us again. What he had done was make sure we got the war started right. Was it that we weren't ever going to have to adjust? No, there's a saying all of us in the military know, even the best of plans doesn't withstand first contact with the enemy. So we made some adjustments, but we had his heart. We knew the intent of what we were to do. So he's one of my heroes, and many, many lessons learned there. And he died in 2012. It was a very sad day for all of us. And we're experiencing a sad day here too, because we lost, another two great soldiers in Colin Powell, for one, and Ray Odierno, who is Chief of Staff of the Army. He died very recently, lived near us in near Pinehurst, North Carolina.
Did you have interactions with him in your career?
Knew both of them. I'll just, one quick Colin Powell story. I was about 4 levels down, but I got to be in meetings, and if ever I heard, okay, General Powell's got the meeting, he was chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff during that time, I'd say, I need to go to this meeting. I just need to stay on the back wall. I want to just hear how he works, how he operates. And here's one thing that I never heard him say, you need to do that, George. He would say, he'd lean in, he'd say, George, I'm not telling you you need to do this, but have you thought about this? And then he would go on to tell us something from his experience. And many, many times I remember, when he would say something like that, people would almost snicker, like, if I haven't thought of this, you bet I'm going to do that. I am not letting that pass by. But he was a gentle man, but a warrior man inside. And totally respect both he and General Odierno was our Chief of Staff of the Army. He was he's a great man.
So he led with a question.
Almost always.
It was always a question.
Have you thought about this? That was his question.
And how did that apply in your own philosophy of your leadership too? How do you, we talked about, for you, leadership was about pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah. I think one of the things that meant to me, and then I'll talk about the puzzle for a second because I love that analogy, but when he would ask a question like that, there's people in this world that micromanage people, and they're going to tell you how to do everything, but the problem is that cuts your thought out of that. I'm a collaborator. I like to hear other people's thoughts. There's some things you can just decide because they're given, but there's other things I think you need to get your team in, and you need to go around the horn, and you need to get different thoughts because you can miss it. And what he was doing is not micromanaging by telling you, this Colin Powell, now you have to do this. He was just making sure that you had considered this thing from every angle. And of course, his angle was one of years and years of incredible experience. So that's how I viewed that. It was kind of the opposite of micromanagement, and yet he got his input into play. And many times we'd walk out of the room and say, we didn't think of that. We need to do that. That was pretty cool. I'll just take that. I talk a lot. Any of you do jigsaw puzzles at home? When you got a lot of kids and stuff, it's really great. You got a card table or on your dining room table. I mean, it can preempt where you eat as we put your puzzle out there. And I always ask people, what's the most important part of a jigsaw puzzle? Okay, people would say the outside. What if it's round or whatever, you know? But it is. A lot of people would say it's that or the corners, if you're going to be even more specific on that. And I eventually get down to the point with them, it's really the box top. It's what's on there. It's what the picture is. Without that picture, and I did a little experiment one time. I switched box tops. Very frustrating. If you know my boys, they don't tolerate that kind of stuff very long. So I had the other box top in my bedroom, and I would go look at a piece of it and come back and put a couple pieces together. But what they were putting together did not look like what was on the box top. But that's what leaders do. They paint the box top. They describe the box top. But the other part of that analogy is we're all a puzzle piece. I'm a piece, you're a piece. Everybody that's in your unit. I had 37,000 people in the Corps of Engineers. I had 600 in a battalion. If you have a division today, you might have 3 or 4 brigades. You got 30, 40,000 people there. Every person in there matters. Everyone counts. And the other part, you can see what my fingers are doing. I can't talk about it without doing this. We fit together. We have to fit together. And so that's where the power is. And unless we all put our own piece in, guess what? The picture does not come. Have you ever lost a puzzle piece of a puzzle? Is that frustrating? We have grandkids, they'll take a piece off, it'll be somewhere. I don't know where. So it's not complete, but it's not done till we all put our piece in. That's the analogy of the jigsaw puzzle.
And of leadership.
And of leadership. I think the leader, you are a piece of that puzzle for sure, but your more important role is to paint the picture, draw the box top, so that everybody, that's what General Schwarzkopf did. We knew where we were going. He had painted that enough that, do you have a question where your piece fits? No, you knew where your piece fit. I knew as an engineer where my piece fit for my battalion because of that.
So Katrina hits. You're the head now chief engineer. You're with the President of the United States. You're flying over. What puzzle vision did you paint for him when he asked you that question? How are we going to fix this?
Yeah. A couple of great interactions with, this was George Bush, 43. And whatever your political thing, I'll tell you, the man has some incredible things that he does. And I'll talk just about one of those. I came on, by the way, I took over the Corps of Engineers after Katrina hit. My job was, I got called up by the Vice Chief of Staff of the Army. He was a classmate of mine. His name is Dick Cody. Some of you might know him, Commander Cody. See some smiles over there. And he's a great man. He calls me up on the phone one day. He says, your predecessor got us through that really difficult time and taking the brunt of the criticism. Now we need somebody to come in and fix this thing. And my first question was, are you going to stay on as the chief a little while longer, or am I going to be out there by myself? He also mentioned that, he said, we were talking about you and we know you're a little long in the tooth, but we're going to put you in there, because I already had about 35 years service at that time. So it was, were we going to go on another 4-year term here? And the answer to that was absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. So we took over that, and so I had many opportunities to be with President Bush and kind of watch his leadership. I used to love, and it got him in trouble sometimes, the back of his airplane, all first class seats, but that's where the media hangs out. He would love to get out of where he hung out in the front of the plane and go to the back of the plane and just talk. And you never know what's going to be written about you, but whatever, he just took that on, and I love that. But the piece that interfaced with me, we'd been working on Katrina for about 1.5 years. We had a deadline from the White House. I don't know how many of you ever have a project where you're getting called from the White House, which I did. It was the chief of staff of the White House. We were on a pretty first name basis, and we say, I need a status report. We're going in to talk to the president, and he's wanting to know where it is. So for the first 2 months, I went down there almost every week. And not to run the project at all, to resource the project. That's different. to my district commander ran the project. That's another thing I've learned. You got to have owners there, and I didn't need to own that. We had 85,000 contracts out, but my part was the resource. At one time, I remember going down there and asking the district commander. I said, "Is there anything else you need? Anything?" I mean, I said, "We got a blank check, sort of." This was a $15 billion project. By the way, the Congress appropriated and authorized the entire amount all at one time. They never do that. They will authorize a project. They'll only appropriate money 1 year at a time. But our contractors wouldn't work that way on this because they had to build the Navy to do this for some of the features. So I get a call one time from the chief of staff of the White House said, "I want you to be at Andrews Air Force Base in 45 minutes. The president's going to go down and look at the project." I mean, what are you thinking right then? You're thinking, okay, my project's getting inspected by the President of the United States. And we've been together on a couple of other disasters. It's part of the Corps of Engineers' role is to respond to disasters. So that's why, so you're with FEMA, you're with USAID if it's international, and you're on the plane with the president, and you're going with him. And so we get in the plane, and before I ever did that, though, I got to back up a step. My first call was to the district engineer and the division engineer of the New Orleans district and saying, "I'm going to the airport, not your regular airport. I'm going to Andrews." And he goes, "Oh, is somebody coming down here?" And then he said, "I was just about to call you. 2 hard cars just rolled out of the back of aircraft down at the airport down in Louisiana." I said, "The president's coming. I want you to show him the good and the bad and the ugly. Show it. I want you to give him absolute truth. We're not sugarcoating anything because there's things that he needs to know, and I've been keeping him informed, but you show him and let him talk to people. Let him find out. Let him get out." And that's what he was great at that. And then, so we get done with that, and it was a kind of a wonderful day. He just talked to people. He talked to all of my people. They were energized to go on. I think another lesson there is use those above you. They can help you if they're of the right kind to motivate your people too and inspire your people. And he did that. So we're on the plane. We're going back to Andrews Air Force Base, and we get around a conference table that they have in Air Force One. Got the 2 senators, got a couple of the congressmen from Louisiana, and the president turns to me and he goes, use my first name. He goes, "Van, what could I have done different?" That's the president of the United States. You know what your first impression is? I'll tell you what mine was. "Sir, you do everything right. You're the president of the United States. What am I going to tell you?" But I thought about it a minute. Well, I've been in the Army 37 or 8 years by that time. What could they do? Fire me? I mean, okay, I'm doing my best. But I thought about it for a minute, which isn't a bad thing to do. Take a moment. But said that if next time you go down those stairs, and when they go down the stairs of that aircraft, by the way, everybody else, you stay in the plane until they're clear. So they're walking down. They always, if the weather's nice, they don't go into a runway or whatever. They put stairs down. They come down. They're greeted by the local folks. You've all seen that many times. I said, when I first complimented him and said, "When you go down those stairs, I know you're going to be empathetic, meaning you're going to feel their pain," because he did that great, "and you're going to be compassionate," which is a little different. It has empathy in it, but it means you're going to do something. And what the president does something, when he says this, "We're going to build it back just like it was, only better." Guess what that did? Because that's what he said when he first visited Katrina and went down those stairs. It locked us into a 300-mile levee system that would have been much better off at a 200-mile levee system. It would have cost about half as much. And we could have given, on the back of an envelope, $500,000. We could have built $500,000 homes for everybody who lost their home on higher ground. So it would never happen again. But when the president speaks, guess what? Everybody's writing. It's a headline. You can't change it. So we were locked in to that. So I said, if you could, when you go down those stairs, do what you do, compassionate, empathetic. but don't lock your engineers into doing something before we've had a chance to study it and see what would be the best way to do it. And so he took that. He goes, what you should do when you get feedback is say thank you. That's what he said. He said, thank you. I hadn't thought about that, but I realize it now. As you look at the engineering solution for this, there was a lot better solution that could have happened. So we're going to Florida. They had a huge bunch of tornadoes and stuff. So we're going again to look at that. We land. I'm at the table again with now a new set of senators and everything. They weren't in on the other conversation. The president gets to the door of the airplane to go down with his wife, with Barbara, and he turns back and he looks at me and he goes, he didn't say a thing, he just goes, what was he thinking when he went down those stairs? I'm not going to tell these people we're going to build it back just like it was. I'm going to be compassionate and empathetic. I'm interpolating what I think was in his head, but he wasn't going to lock his engineers in to something that was not going to be the best for the American people. So my leadership experience from George Bush is if he can ask for advice, you can too, and I can too. So I've made a lifetime of doing after action reports with people and saying, what could I have done better? Help me. And usually I know what some of the things I could have done better. I always start with that. But and then you know what? People will say, I could have done this better too. And if you dust that off next time something happens, you got a head start. So
wow, great story. What about Afghanistan? How was that in the what could I have done better category?
Yeah.
Since you asked me, since you said I can ask questions in leadership, I thought I'd fire one at you just like you fired one at Bush.
You know, I wasn't involved in Afghanistan recently, so that could have been done a lot better, I believe. But got one of our Medal of Honor winners was your time was in Afghanistan, but you received your incredible award here, and two of you, yes. And so I've been to Afghanistan a ton of times, as you might imagine. And as chief of engineers, one of the first things I did was put a district in Afghanistan to do it, because we had three big missions. One was military construction, help the U.S. forces with our bases and the Afghan forces with their bases. Another one was infrastructure, water, roads. I mean, there was, when we went, I mean, you got to go there to believe it. When the Russians went there, they stripped the trees and everything off. They were occupying for a long time. I mean, it's about as desolate. It's dusty and it's tough, and they didn't have near enough wells to support their people. I think that one of the things that I asked early on, and some white people were doing it too, this just wasn't me, but one of the things that the Taliban was not known for was educating anybody other than maybe the top senior males. And so we knew that part of this freedom for the Afghan people was going to be schools. And one of the things I'm most proud of, they built with their contractors, a lot of it was US money, but we built over 20,000 schools for girls, for young boys and all that, to try and educate their population, because we know our story of America, that's one of the great stories, is how we educate our young people. And we need to never forget that, and we need to do that. But so many lessons learned. One of the reasons I'm an engineer, my boys are warriors. I just told you what they did. They have a different role than I did. We've got some Rangers in this group here too, I know, but I'm a builder. And so I was looking for, how do we give another aspect of freedom through the building of things? And that's why I was an engineer my whole life.
And in doing that, and you obviously must have gotten feedback from friends, even though you were there in the recent, has the population, although being suffering again, what do they think of that effort? What in your heart, the vast majority of those people?
Oh, I think, to go in, as I would make a trip over there, I'd always go visit one of the schools or something. And we even built military schools for their military, equivalent to our Fort Leavenworth, which is Command and General Staff College. That's what it was when I was there. But I think they were very grateful for that. There is the jury's out right now because some of those schools are not being used for school anymore.
Right.
They're being used for headquarters and things like that. But there's 20 years from 2001 to 2021. There was a lot of educating going on out there, and that was dear to my heart because I believe so much in it.
One last question for you, and then we'll take questions from the audience. We have microphones available. So during these unprecedented times, what advice would you give active military civilians and veterans to keep them safe?
Yeah, I tell you, as I think about when I was at the Army War College, we had to do a paper. Everybody has to do a paper. And you do a paper on what you thought was the greatest threat to our nation. And back then, which was when in the 90s, I guess, I went to right before Desert Storm, I said the biggest threat in the United States, more than any other weapon of mass destruction, was the moral decay of the United States. And I went back and I looked at every great society prior to ours, the Romans, the Greeks, the people that in this whole world were preeminent. And it was the moral decay. I would add something now as I think about that. As I see what is going on in America right now, I think one of the biggest threats, it's not the nuclear Russia, it's not the nuclear China, it's not the nuclear North Korea, it's not even terrorism. I think it is the polarization of us. I think it's internal. I think the fracture. Then one of the privileges I've had over time, I've actually had, not me personally, but when you're a young officer in the uniform side of the Corps, you build bridges. That's part of your role. When we go and we're building bridges, and I always thought of that, when we go into another country and we build a bridge, we're building bridges. We need to build some bridges right here. And so that's part of what I'm doing the rest of my life is how do we build bridges? How do we build those bridges between us? And because we're so fractured today, so polarized today, we can do better.
Amen. Well, thank you. Incredible insight, honesty, integrity, and openness. It's been a joy. And now we have time for some questions. If you have a question, raise your hand for the general. We'll bring a microphone down here in the front, coming around.
I doubt if you need a microphone, but you can have one. So, okay, I got you.
We got one first, and then the next.
Okay, one there, and then in the front row, we got another one after you.
So, a quick question, probably on the humorous side.
Who are you first? I like names.
Malcolm Mosley, retired combat vet.
Thank you for your service, Malcolm. Thank you.
No problem. So, being out of the special ops community, psychological operations, on the thinking side, I always get this question, that favorite question when you go into the gas station. I would have served, but this and this and that. And I know a lot of my fellow military people will have this question also in their head. What do you think about those that haven't served but feel that they should have, or those that haven't served and say that they shouldn't have? What's your basis on the Israel approach of everyone serving versus the American approach of freedom to not? Does it make you a better nation to have that freedom to not serve? Or do you think if everybody goes through that service, it makes you a stronger nation? Me, I'm indifferent because I understand with that freedom to do as you wish, I think it makes you a little bit more viable of a human. Not everybody's built for it. So how do you feel about that?
Yeah, great question. A lot of piece parts to that. I'll go back to, we've had, as our kids have gone to college, I don't know what your philosophy is. You can either pay their whole college way or they can have some skin in the game and pay part of it. And so that's my basic philosophy. I had a command called the Sessions Command along the way that had basic training, it had cadet command, and it had recruiting command. And our target in one of those 2 years I was in, there was 170,000 recruits. And to get to your point, there's some people you're going to meet at their kitchen table with their parents, and they ought not be soldiers. They don't have it, what it takes to be it. I think we got to be selective coming in. We're having a little conversation before. And then when they get in, they need to be stone hardened here in the military, because we're going to ask them to do some really tough things, things that would give other people PTSD and things. We're going to stress them, but we need to practice like we play. That's one of the things in the football thing, and we were told that forever. You need to practice like you're going to play in a game, and so I feel we've got to have really good, tough training, and then people that this isn't right for them, just like I do in business. If this position isn't right, we either need to find a right position for you somewhere. My feeling is every young person ought to serve, but it could be not in the military. It could be in some other place where they give time from their life so that they know how to serve, because that's selfless service. If you don't have that, then it's going to be serve self, and that's like totally different. So that's kind of my feeling. Here's just another fact, because in recruiting command, you have all kinds of data. Over 50% of our Army, that's where I'm most familiar, comes from an Army family. Like, I look at our family, they came because of maybe our service too. And it puts an obligation on us who are in the military. Like, I came home, I'll describe my attitude. It's not, I have to, I want to, it's I get to. And so that's how I approached it. I coached soccer, I did those things. I tried to balance family and work, but I wanted my kids to not say, I would never do what my dad does. I want them to say, I'm going to think closely about that. In fact, our boys, we were at West Point, I was on the faculty. Our two older boys decided right then, how old were they, babe? Yeah, kindergarten, first grade, they were going to West Point. That was it. So knowing that, but I think one of the things about the Greatest Generation, it was a drafty Army, and almost every family was touched. The Colin Powell doctrine, if you will, what I attribute to him, said we're not going to go to war unless the American people are behind us. So it doesn't mean that you necessarily are in the service, but we need you behind us if we're going to go somewhere. So kind of a long answer, didn't maybe answer exactly, but it's tough. I've seen people that are in the wrong seat on the wrong bus before, and it just doesn't work out. And if for the military you're the wrong seat in the wrong bus, we don't need you in we need people that are in the right seat on the right bus. So thanks, good question.
In the front.
Thank you, sir, for joining us here today. My name is Rick Savage. I'm a veteran.
Hi, Rick.
I'm an aspiring Calvin Klein model, but it's not happening for me yet. Now, the question I had, I think all of us here watch the news every day, and you can find a news station that believes what you believe, and you can watch that station. We all kind of get tunnel vision. And when I'm watching it, I'm seeing General Milley, and I'm seeing all these other commanders. They're kind of being raked over the coals for Afghanistan. But what I'm seeing as an undercurrent is that the focus, at least from what I see, is that we're not as worried now about fighting and winning wars as we are about our soldiers and troops having the right political philosophies. It feels, you keep hearing the word purging out. As a veteran, and it scares the heck out of me to think that we're more focused on social issues in the military than we are of fighting and winning wars. I mean, am I right in saying that seems to be a focus, or is it just hype from the news and we need to all chill out a little bit?
Yeah. Rick, that's a great question. I think one of the things I've learned in my life is I need to go out in the field and see. And so we just came from Hawaii. Our son's in the 25th Division. If you go to what they're doing and the training that they're doing, they're making strain-hardened soldiers there, and they're ready to fight. And they have the whole Asian Pacific kind of area. So we talked some with our son about some of these other things that seem to be from on high, that they're coming down. Some of it is very tough because if we get totally separated from the people, we are an army of the people. To Malcolm's question about recruiting and all that. But I'll tell you, in the 25th Division, and then we have a nephew that commands a battalion in the 82nd Airborne at Fort Bragg. If you go down into those units, I'll tell you, they're producing stellar soldiers. And a lot of this rhetoric that you're watching on TV, if you go there, and we know the commander of Fort Bragg, we know a lot of the generalship there, they are taking these things, but I'll have to say, they're important, but they're kind of noise for what their eye is still on the ball down there. And I assure you of that from those touches that I'm making in there, because that's what we're going to need to fight America's wars and win, as you know, in that. But I say watch less news. I guess that would be one thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
We got three more. Here, back, and here. We'll get to all of them. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I actually have a couple questions, which kind of relate to the same topic.
You only get one at a time, then you can ask your second
one at a time.
Because I won't remember. I'm 71 years old.
All right.
People would do that. I got 5 questions. Oh, yeah. I don't have a pen. So I'm just kidding.
Here's the difficult part. So when we left Afghanistan, we left a lot of Americans. We left a couple thousand Americans. I'm down to still working with one American family in Afghanistan and several civs. And they're still there. And I struggle talking to their family members here and everything. As far as connections, reality is 2 of the 3 teams that I work with are now gone. They've been taken out over there. How do we get our Americans out of there that are still there? And how do we get all of our assets that are out of there that are still there, as far as any connections that we have? Because I'm running out. I think we've kind of totally ran out there.
Yeah, I mean, what an incredible, difficult situation. Our nephew that was a battalion commander, he was on the ground at the airport after the Marines got hit at the gate. His unit took over that gate. And there were a lot of other entities wanting to get people in the gate and everything. And the gate had, as far as you could look back, people packed together to get in there. So the situation is really, really difficult. I strongly admire everybody who was trying to work to get other people out, that had interpreters that they knew those people needed to come out, and they were going to be in incredible jeopardy. One of the things that happened during the first period of that time, like there were special forces units, and they had organized to help do that with you all, and I think a lot of that's dropped off. I think we need to have another push over there and first of all, identify everybody that still wants to come out. And then we need to make a strong push, and we need to go back in with some strength at the airport and do it. Honestly, I think the Taliban would let us do it because it's more of a pain for them not to. But I applaud what you're trying to do to get people out. My heart's with you totally. I can only imagine if you were left there on the ground and you wanted to get out.
The other part of that is with the Afghanistan veterans, and really all veterans, what's the best way to tell them, especially with what happened in Afghanistan, that they matter, their service mattered?
Yeah. But I guess, their service definitely mattered. When you think of 20 years of really freedom for the people, that was bought, but it was bought with a really heavy price. I don't know. It's hard to say anything's going to be forever. If you look at, I've studied World War II, World War I, what the agreements were after that, a lot of them have unraveled over time, and that this is a really hard thing. But I would tell every single veteran what you gave, the price you paid was money well spent. Money well spent. And that was and it's really hard. When Paul and I go every year to Alaska, we've done it about 9 years now with Operation Heal Our Patriots from Samaritan's Purse. And we have these discussions up there, and it's really hard. Here's one thing I always say, and I know it's true in my life. I told you we're people of faith, that God doesn't waste anything in your life. When you gave your all, if you know you gave everything you had to what the mission was right there, then you got to let it lay right there. You can't worry and say that was in vain or everything. No, it isn't, because it will be used in your heart. It may give you a compassion that you didn't have, or it may give you a sense for an area you got to get involved that you never would.